contributing editor and producer for Sci-Fi Wire. I'm also known as the Blurred Girl. Welcome. Thank you. I'll pay you later. Thank you, sweetheart. So, this is the Sci-Fi Nightflyers panel. Are you guys excited? Woo! Show of hands. How many people read the book? Oh, good. You're gonna really be surprised. Okay, I am here with the cast and some of the crew, and we're gonna basically take you through what this brand new show is about, okay? All right, now my first guest that I'm introducing is executive producer and showrunner, Jeff Bueller. The next person that I'm going to bring out is one of the lead actors. He plays Carl DeBrannon. His name is Owen Mackin. The next guest, I'm pretty sure you know her. She plays Dr. Agatha Matheson. Her name is Gretchen Mall. And my next guest plays the elusive Captain Roy Eris, David Ajala. Next up we have Rowan, and we'll tell you what Rowan does in a minute, played by Angus Sampson. And then one of the most important characters in the show, Melantha Jurl, played by the gorgeous Jodie Turner-Smith. We also have executive producer Gene Klein and executive producer Dave Bartis. Welcome to cast and crew of Sci-Fi Nightflyers. Now, is this everybody's first convention, or who's been here before? Okay, Andy's producer. Oh, wow.
I've been here, but never up here.
Never up here?
Yeah, this is different.
This is fun. You like this side better?
I like this.
Gretchen, it's your first time?
I'm a virgin.
Oh my God! David, are you?
It's my first time. That sounds good. It's my first time here.
Okay.
Use your radio
David,
voice.
I just need to let you know you always sound good. Don't worry about it.
I bet you say that to all the conventions.
So everybody here, now I just found this out before I came out here, that I've actually seen more scenes of the show than they have. So I think they have more questions for me. I'm going to start with you, Jeff. Please tell me, what is the premise of the show? What is Nightflyers?
Well, basically, Nightflyers is a journey to make contact with the first known alien object or race out there. So if you've read the novella Nightflyers, you know a little bit about it. We use that as the framework for the show. And essentially it's a group of scientists who are on the most advanced spacecraft ever built, the Nightflyer, piloted by Captain Roy Eris, played by David Ajala. And most of the other cast members here are is that scientific team. And so basically the journey of the Nightflyer is the mission to make contact with this object that has been discovered flying past our solar system. In George R. R. Martin's book, it takes place in what's known as his 1,000-world universe. We stepped back a little bit from the complexity of that world to create a story that takes place 75 years in our own future. So everything feels very realistic, based in current technology. It should be just over the horizon of where we are in terms of technology and science, and we try to keep everything very grounded and realistic in that way.
Except for the part where people start dying.
Yeah, and the psychics and...
that's what I'm saying.
That's very real.
Exactly.
Who knows?
Because I was like, yeah, but then there's this thing where people die.
Yeah, that's right. And then we have a little fun. That was, that's the serious answer. And then we have some fun.
Now, anybody can answer this. What has been the most exciting part about making the show for you?
I remember, so we filmed in Ireland, Limerick to be specific, and I remember going into the office and speaking with Mike Cahill, the executive producer and the director of the pilot, and seeing all the concept art. And it blew my mind, literally. The scale of it was so impressive. And then I'll never forget the moment where all the cast members came together and we went on set to just check out a few of the things. Some sets were complete, some were incomplete. And then cut to stepping on set for the first time and taking it all in. Like it's very impressive. It's very epic.
We built an actual spaceship.
You did? I'm the captain.
Oh, so most of that is practical. That was a lot of things. Wow, so that must be great for you as actors to actually have things to feel and touch and not just walk.
You know, it's not very often that you get to go onto a film set and genuinely be like, oh, this is incredible. You know, when you're creating something as an actor or as a writer or a director, you want to be able to do something that's really, really interesting and cinematic that you get a kick out of, that you want to watch. And when you're on these sets and everything is so visceral and the sets are huge, it's just kind of awesome. So when they first say, okay, you're rolling, let's say your lines, you're like, yeah.
Well, we worked really hard to build as much of the world as we could practically, so that it felt real, that the experience felt real. A lot of the special effects were done practically. A lot of the stuff that you would traditionally use green screens for, we had huge LED walls, and in that way, the actors were really inside the experience of the Nightflyer. I mean,
which, you know what would have really been the coolest experience being inside the Nightflyer? Is if George R.R. Martin was here.
Oh.
And I heard, because he couldn't be here, I heard something.
Sorry.
Yeah. I did hear, though, he wanted to make sure that everybody here heard his vision for this show.
George.
You're looking.
Hi there, this is George R. R. Martin. I'm sorry I can't be with you today at Comic-Con, but I'm busy working on the Winds of Winter, Wild Cards, and some other exciting new stuff for you to enjoy down the line. But don't worry, you're in great hands with really amazing people who are bringing my novella, Nightflyers, to life for Syfy. So please sit back and enjoy this exclusive look at the new Sci-Fi series, Nightflyers.
So, Gretchen. You still got a job, bro?
Want me to take that?
Jeff? Take that one.
Yes.
Well, I just to clarify, in case anyone's worried that they just saw some great spoiler from the middle of the season, that is the first few minutes of episode 1. So that is how it starts. Welcome to the Nightflyer, and there's a lot of unwrapping to be done to get to where that is, and a lot of mystery and
Angus?
Gretchen has more scenes in the show.
Yes, she has 2 more scenes.
She has 2 more scenes. And Angus, I had him listed as a botanist. So what happened, man? They took away your 401k? What happened?
That's what happens when you cut in front of me and kill me. That was the first scene that I read in episode 1 of the script, and I was hooked. Hopefully you guys are too. What do you think of it? Did you enjoy that? And I just thought, wow, what are the rules here in space? And I didn't know how the story would start after that. But and none of us obviously get told what happens in episode to episode. We were like, am I dying?
That's a George R.R. Martin show.
Yeah, I'm sure lots of producers have wanted me to die.
The other great thing about that teaser open is that's what we pitched when we sold the show.
Yeah.
That sold the whole series, that teaser.
It's just been around for years.
Yeah, and it's the one thing that really hasn't changed much. We knew how we wanted to kick it off.
So let's talk a little bit about each of your characters, because we know what happens to 2 of you. So, Jody, tell us a little bit about Melantha's character, because she's very special. She wasn't in this clip, but She's got a very, I think her background is very interesting. Can you tell us a little bit about her?
Yes, so Melantha is basically this really incredible woman who has spent her entire life not only sort of training to be an astronaut, to live off planet, because, you know, in our world and in the world of the show, Earth is dying. But she was also in vitro genetically sort of engineered so that she would better be able to live off planet. So there's a lot about her that's different, and there's a lot about her that's also sort of super focused towards this one life goal that kind of culminates in getting onto the Nightflyer, which is supposed to sort of be this, you know, experience of a lifetime, and as you just saw from that clip, turns into a bloodbath.
Now, I mean, everybody has interesting roles on the ship. Now, since your character is enhanced, as it were, are you security, or are you, like, because it seems to be a science ship, is it not?
That's right, yeah. Owen's character.
Well, Jodie's character, Melantha, is brought on as, I play Carl de Brandon, and he brings on Melantha as his sort of second in command, and because she's been adapted for space travel. And Carl de Brandon...
And is also super intelligent.
Super intelligent, super hot, super cool. Bring her to space.
Super everything.
Yeah, super everything. Right?
Also, hair goals.
Super humble. Super humble as well.
But the team was handpicked by your character.
The team was handpicked by Carl de Brandon, who reluctantly realizes he has to go to space to find these aliens, and because the world is in a messed up place, and he's got a lot of other kind of issues he's kind of obsessed about. And so he brings on Gretchen's character and Angus and Jodie to basically go and find these aliens. He handpicks these people he can work with. And they don't know where they're going or what's going to happen. And they end up on the spaceship, which is run by David Ajala's character. And no one really knows where they're going to go. No one's gone this far in space. No one really knows what goes on your ship, right? No one's been allowed on your ship without your kind of company telling them what to do. And so from the start, the whole thing is kind of complicated, and no one really fully understands how they're going to get there. It's just that Carl is obsessed and is convinced that they're going to meet these aliens if they do this. And everyone's basically going off this kind of you know, he's got a few notepads with some kind of...
It's also really tense. The crew of the Nightflyer, they are used to building colonies, and they go from outer Earth orbit to Mars to the moon, and they use those giant domes that you saw to build colonies for people to live off planet. And when Captain Eris decides to take on this mission, it's a shift from their normal behavior as this colony building ship, and bringing these scientists on board brings a lot of tension into the life on board.
And all these scientists have never been in space before, so we haven't got a clue what's going on. Right? The only one who knows what's happening is Mel. Right?
And that speaks to Melantha Jurl. She basically was trained and raised to take these deep space missions. So as the leader of the...
What I'm hearing from there is if anything goes wrong, it's Mel's fault.
That's right. That's right. It's her fault.
Now, everything that goes right is because of Mel.
Oh, I'm watching the show. This is awesome. Now let's talk about the captain a little bit. The elusive captain.
Captain Eris.
Yes, Captain Eris. Yeah,
Captain Eris.
Nice try.
Hello, testing.
Why is your character so elusive? Why is it such a strange thing for him to take on a mission like this?
Well, first and foremost, with Captain Eris being elusive, there's a whole backstory to his past. And I think one of the most challenging things for him, which we'll see in the early episodes, is the fact that he struggles with human interaction. He is a hologram, and he does...
That would make human interaction difficult, yes.
Yeah, you know, so it does make very practical things hard. You know, it's hard, you can't touch people, even though you have affection for them, you can't touch people because you're a hologram. And I think this journey becomes a catalyst for him to search deeper inside and to be the best version of himself. I also think this journey and partnering up with Carl de Brandon allows him to do something different and to possibly step outside of his mother's shadow and do something legendary on a very epic scale by making contact with a celestial being, which is the Valkyrie.
You just described my puberty years.
So you have trouble with your mother? It's okay, honey. This is a safe space. Say what you feel. You're gonna be fine. What is the most interesting? Because I think most people would think it's you know, these are astronauts and they're out there and they're searching and they're fighting, but this really all sounds like research and science. So like,
we're not astronauts. No one has a clue what to do in space. I think,
who's driving? Okay.
That's a very good
The
question.
crew of the Nightflyer are seasoned. These guys are the outsiders, right?
Yeah, we don't know what's going on. I mean, Angus, you know, you spend a lot of time with biology and, you know, spider webs and stuff wrapped in aluminum, kind of like tins and stuff. Right? Sweaty socks around there.
Animals. Yeah.
Wait, no, is it no? It's not just botany. You're studying animals and
Biologist.
Xenobiologist.
Xenobiologist.
Does anyone know what a xenobiologist is?
Show hands. Xenobiology.
Yeah!
That guy right there has a degree in it, probably.
It's Comic-Con. X for Xeno.
So for not him, but everybody else, what's a xenobiologist?
Oh, I didn't mean to put my hand up.
Nice, but you did.
A xenobiologist is someone who gets upset with Gretchen's character.
Do you want me to jump in?
I was going to say, he's over here just like,
the study of alien life, isn't it?
The study of alien life forms, of life forms that we have not yet encountered. So
Wait, I'm sorry, was that correct?
Chaos
To the
theory.
gentleman out there?
It's a study of alien life.
I'm checking, I'm working with you.
double check.
But it basically meant that I could claim everything on this job under tax. Because it was any sort of, all forms of life I was able to put it into expenses. So but it was a great joy to actually be able to, biology was one of the few sciences at school that I enjoyed, and was able to, with Jeff, of course, and the wonderful directors and writers that we had, I was able to find out what everyone else was doing in the future, and then asked if my character could sort of have an analogue love of things. So they were all wearing tight sort of lycra, and so I asked if I could wear a cardigan made of wool and what have you. So I like to think that Rowan represents the past, whereas the rest of these guys are all very futuristic and healthy.
Now, quick question before we get to the next clip. What's wrong with Earth?
Earth is not doing well. And this is 75 years in the future.
I'm curious, like, why would they?
Yeah. No, but it's not post-apocalyptic Earth where nobody can live, but imagine all the problems that we talk about today when we talk about
5 days from now.
yeah, well, it's coming faster than you think. We said it 75 years in the future, but the idea was to paint a picture of Earth where life isn't working anymore. And it's not an apocalypse, but we know that it's not sustainable, and there's a push to build off-world habitats, the colonization. But then Carl DeBrandon, in discovering this object, thinks maybe there's something that they know, some technology they have, or some information they have that could potentially help us turn our world around or save our world. So there's this debate between should the human race be rushing to make colonies to essentially use our world up and then go somewhere else? Is there some moral imperative to spread the human race throughout the galaxy, or is there some other way we can address these problems? And we dig into some of these big themes, which are...
And I want to show some of those themes because we got one other
Yeah, sure.
So, and after this, we're going to take some fan questions. So don't jump on top of each other while this is playing. It's a fire hazard. After this next clip, we'll start taking questions.
Things go wrong.
I said the holodeck is broken.
Yeah.
Now, I can't see. Does anybody have any questions out there? And if so, we got to get to the mics. So, there we go, lights, lovely. Can you raise your hand? The people with mics, can you raise your hands so they can see? Lovely. Anybody? Nobody has a question.
All right, then I'll just keep talking.
Yeah,
I was going to continue on from what
As I was saying.
well, you know, you were saying something interesting a second ago before that amazing trailer, which none of us had seen, by the way. They don't show us anything, by the way, at all.
Oh, so you didn't see that either?
I mean, I could have been in the jungle for all I knew, apart from the fact of a spaceship.
They're not even allowed to watch the show when it comes out.
No, it's interesting, the idea of trying to save Earth and going into the unknown. When it comes down to it, deciding how much you're willing to sacrifice, whether or not if you want to kind of save, you know, the entire human race, how many people you will sacrifice. So that is a question that kind of occurs, you know, many times in literature and as a kind of philosophical question. When you actually come down to it, that's a really important thing for people to consider, is what you will sacrifice for the greater good, or if the greater good becomes your own subjective idea. And that becomes an important.
And
we actually, oh, go ahead, I'm sorry, but we're going to let you answer and then there'll be one question.
What's interesting about the show is that, you know, because number one, it's not set in like some super distant future, and even in the present now, we're all aware of the ways in which we're like, okay, if we keep going on like this as humanity, the planet's not going to last very much longer. And so just this idea, you know, when Nightflyers picks up, we're already past the point of being able to continue to survive as a human race on planet Earth. And, you know, that's where the sort of urgency and radical nature of this mission comes from, where it's like our last ditch, like we've already had for years, you know, Roy Ayres' family, played by David Ajala, you know, colonizing off-world, and everyone's moving into that business because we're trying to, but you know, the amount of people that there are on Earth and the amount of places there are where we can actually live in an environment that isn't Earth-like is very small. And so, you know, what's really driving us out there is this idea that it's like, we have to figure out a place to transplant the human race. And maybe, you know, these aliens can help us do it, because it's not like a Star Wars or a Star Trek universe where physics doesn't exist and we can just warp speed to anywhere in the universe. It's like, physics is real, and, you know, we need to try to get to some of these planets that are Earth-like, that are outside of the solar system. So it's like, how do we do that? We go on this radical mission to talk to some aliens and see if they'll give us some info. And the fact that on the way to do that, everything just sort of starts to break down, that even doesn't necessarily have anything to do with those aliens, you know, that's kind of what terror is, because it's like we're on this mission to do something to help humanity, and then like we start sort of losing our own humanity.
And there's nowhere for you to go. You're on a spaceship in space.
Yeah, that's where the horror comes into play.
So you're on a huge tin can and you
I see somebody with a NASA shirt and
Yes.
a question, and I'm really excited to hear what it is, because I feel like it might be space related.
Because I'm terrified, I can't answer this
It
question.
might be space related.
Go for it, thank you for your question.
So, my name's Viviana.
Hi, Viviana.
Hello.
My question is, what's it like filming and acting in those intense scenes that we saw during the clip?
Super fun.
Good.
No, I would say that I hadn't done a lot of sci-fi or horror, and that was part of the draw for me wanting to do the job.
Throat, really?
It was just to let go of a scream. Just to scream as loud as, with as much fear as I could. And
You do a great scream. You should do a scream now.
And I wasn't acting at all.
So the circumstances are horrific many times, but I think because it's so, in a way, it feels far-fetched somehow. It feels like fantastical. So, you know, you're allowed to kind of go to these crazy places as an actor, and it's fun. It's cathartic, and at the end of it, you go home, and it's not at all a spaceship, and it's not at all this insane world that George created and that Gretchen created.
And that's
How
what's...
come the rest of us went to counseling after this show and Gretchen had a good time?
She had a blast. I think I think you had fun. You had fun.
I liked flying. I mean,
what's really cathartic about not just the horror, but using science fiction as a framework to tell these stories, is that you can talk about things that are present, whether it's our Earth or the condition of life, and you're dealing with them in sort of in that one step removed. It's that the fantasy element, but it feels very realistic. Everything we did was meant to be very sort of realistic and present. Hence all the practical effects and all that stuff. But it really looked like you guys, and this is as an observer watching it, had a lot of fun playing in that playground.
It was fun, and it's also super like, I mean, intense and emotional at times. I mean, some of the stuff that I saw in that one teaser was from some things where I'm gonna tell you, was being in a scene with some of these guys, and I was just like, this is not a part where I'm supposed to be losing it, and I'm losing it.
Yeah.
So it's
I've actually seen some of your scenes, and you do a phenomenal job. There's some intense stuff. Like I was able to see some more footage, and I spent most of it going like this. I can't, because you saw how we opened it, right? Let's take this next question.
Hi. Looks really cool. I'm not familiar with George R.R. Martin's novella, but it feels like from watching the clips that there's a heavy 2001 and The Shining influence. And so I was wondering if you could go into that a little bit and how much that came into the show.
Yeah, well, I will just say, we leaned heavily on the shoulders of the greats when it came to science fiction, and we were not shy about pulling the themes and even some imagery that's homage. There's a lot of 2001 in here, there's a lot of The Shining in here, there's a lot of Ridley Scott's Alien in here. Those are touchdones.
Did we tell them about the lenses?
The lenses were used to shoot Alien. I believe they were the actual lenses.
If there's anybody here who cares about gear and who loves that type of stuff.
Yeah.
Panasonic, with the Panavision C-series lenses.
Panavision C-series anamorphic lenses. Thank you very much, Joe.
They threw money at it, honey.
No, those are actually very good cinematic lenses that come from post-production. And
those were the choices, as producers, those were the choices that we made so that it felt like we were watching a film, that it felt like we were watching big science fiction, that it felt very real. You can tell with also with the scope and scale of the sets and the ambition of, it was a very ambitious story. There was a lot that we tackled.
Did anybody have to, was there a lot of physical training for some of those things? Like, I know if you're floating, it's probably, you weren't in zero G, so I'm assuming you were rigged.
Right.
So, there's a lot of flying and rigging, and was there any fight scene? I mean, you didn't fight, you just had to.
I mean, there was definitely like quite a bit of physical work, but I love that. I love physical work, and so it was really fun to get to do some of the stuff, and I don't want to say, well, I mean, you saw in some of the clips, there's definitely some water stuff. There's some stuff inside of a tank.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh. And David, was there physical work for you, or did you just, how did it feel to just act from the front since you were a hologram?
See, the thing is, as I'm listening to this and digesting it, in my mind I'm just thinking, I have to be very careful not to give away any spoilers.
Yeah.
It's crazy. I looked at the list that our PR team gave us, and it's the little things I can't say, and I'm like, what can I say? My name's David.
My name's David.
I'm a chocolate brother. Seriously. But I tell you what.
I think you can talk about sausages though.
Oh yeah.
If you want to. That wasn't on the list.
That's why you don't read those things.
Okay, you can't bring that up and not talk about it.
I tell you what, there's two things I did in preparation for this role. And one was to make sure that physically I was as supple and relaxed as possible.
I'm sorry, stop. I need a minute. David used supple in a sentence.
Oh, you better believe. So that includes yoga,
the panel's going
breakdancing. It was very important to make sure I was breakdancing. Very, very important. I lost track of what I was saying. So basically, there's a lot of very, very cool stuff I get to do. And it's going to sound very ambiguous. Because if I say too much about certain things, I'm going to give away big spoilers.
David, the only thing that came out of that, I've just heard you say that you're supple. No one else has been.
Yeah, I was going to say, you do understand that after this panel, it's #supple.
Oh, yeah.
#supple. That should actually be, so when you think of David John, #supple.
Now, actually, before that commits to memory, you guys, if you are out here tweeting and Instagramming, please use SDCC, which you should be using anyway, and hashtag Nightflyers. But I just gave you a
And hashtag chocolate in space.
Yeah. Chocolate in space.
Chocolate in space. That's called Nightflyers After Dark. That's a different show.
We're
And I'm
giving
gonna have to
ourselves
talk to
open.
somebody because that's a different rate.
That's the spin-off.
Okay, wait, I'm sorry. Are you asking the second question, sweetie?
Yes.
Wait. You gotta let somebody else go and then I promise we'll come back to you. But there's somebody standing behind you. Trying to, do they let you skip places at NASA? What are you doing?
Okay, you guys touched on this a little bit.
Oh my gosh, just read your question, guys. It's important.
After those intense scenes, did you bring the spaceship home with you? Like, did you go home and hide under a blanket?
Gretchen, did you hide all the sharp objects in your house?
I didn't. Well, we were in Ireland. It was pretty picturesque and beautiful to be there shooting this. And I don't know. You know, this is, I don't know, boring information. But I have 2 kids, and since I've had that in my life, have children, I basically leave the work at work, and then I go home, and I'm kind of grateful to have that differentiation, you know. It's like, it does take a certain toll, but then as soon as you get home and someone like wants buttered noodles, you just, you can't be like, I was just being pulled across the floor with blood all over.
Have you shown him the teaser?
No. Oh my God. In fact, my daughter was scrolling through pictures on my phone, and there was like one of those pictures from that teaser, and she's like, delete that.
So like, when you're at home, you don't, like, and they don't clean their rooms, you're not screaming like you were in the halls of the...
No.
How about anybody else?
It'll come, it's inside. It'll come up later.
I'm similar to Gretchen, actually, because in terms of, you know, Stanislavski, there's a phrase that he uses, and it's before entering into theatre space or stage, you wipe your feet, you don't take your life into it. And the reverse of that is once you've left set, you don't take that home. But
because it's hard to be see-through at home.
It's hard to be see-through, and I had some humble pie because, you know, throughout the shoot I'd fly back home, and I'm the captain of the ship. And I remember my wife, you know, instructing me to go to the kitchen to wash plates, and I was like, no, I'm the captain of the ship.
I'm sorry, I just hear Frozen's wife, like,
So, I'm a therapy session. I apologize, but you know, I'm in a good place now.
Safe space. It's your safe space.
Well, I'm not married or with children, so I don't have the luxury of like a distraction. I'm like, you know, full on crazy actress. Like I'm like at home, like crying in the shower. No, it was definitely something where I think. At the end of the project, it was good. I had like a nice. I think when you're doing this thing, and it's funny, it's like we're creating this sort of false claustrophobia because, you know, we are actors. It's not real life, but at the same time, it's like you know, while you're living in that and creating that, you are sort of making it kind of real. And so after months of sort of being on a madhouse of a spaceship, you know, it's like sort of at the end of the job, it's like, oh my God.
You know, guys, when we go back to filming, I'm living with one of you because I automatically thought where I live was haunted. And every day I go back into the show and I was like, I need to just get out of here.
He's like, I can't stand these people, and I'm leaving.
When you set foot on the set, that feeling would come back. Like those sets really kind of did feel creepy when you walked around them. But that sense of horror was there.
When we got a tour the first time of the set, the cast, we all met one another and was shown around by the director of episode 1. He took us into this airport hangar-sized studio, and it was like, wow, that's incredible. Oh, what fantastic, looking forward to shooting. And we went to leave, and he was like, oh, come through here. We went into a second hangar, and there was more of the spaceship. And then we went into a third airport hangar. It's so huge, this set, the production design is everything you'd expect from George R. R. Martin and the guys at Sci-fi and the girls. And it's just such a remarkable place to exist that by the end of it, we did 5 months of filming. We were saying goodbye to cast every week. There is so much death in this series. Every week we were saying, you know.
No spoilers, but a lot of people.
There's so much death. And then at the end.
A lot of people on the ship.
at the end, Gretchen invited us over to her house outside of Limerick, and we were so exhausted, and then she surprised us with some river dancing.
Little girls,
little children dancing.
River dancing, really?
Yeah, at her house. It was quite it was such a remarkable sort of reminder of this
body
picturesque...
count, dancing children.
Yes.
Just to scrub it off your soul.
That's yeah. Okay, we have one last question. What's your second question?
Let me guess, your name's Bibiana.
Close enough.
No. Bibiana?
Yes, we could be.
Yeah, I'm Australian.
He's Australian. Yeah, he's Australian. That was a V in Australia.
All right, let's hear it.
So my second question is, as an actor myself, do you have any advice or tips on filming those intense scenes?
Do it with Gretchen Mol.
Surround yourself with talented people.
Yeah, but I think the best thing is, remember when you were playing whatever you were playing when you were 5, Cops and Robbers, whatever it was, and you committed to it. You know, you believed it.
Pretty dark.
You told yourself, I'm doing this now, or I'm like a waitress in a restaurant and I'm taking the orders of everybody. And you just believed it. And in this environment, especially where you're on a spaceship, I've never been on a spaceship, there's not a lot you can grab onto that feels like, you know, an experience you've had before. And so if you just say, this guy is dying and I have to get help and blah, 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 all of a sudden it just, you know, you get to play. It becomes more about the play and your own sort of suspension of disbelief.
And using the psychology, I mean, a lot of the horror that we play out, you guys saw some clips that show some really visceral physical horror, but I would say the majority of the horror in the show takes place in a psychological context. And what we tried to do was to build characters, and this pertains to your question about acting, build characters that have layers that you can identify with, whether you're in the future or you're on a spaceship, that we understand what it's like to lose somebody or to fall in love with somebody. And those little touchstones that we have in our life, you bring that into it and you can make it scary, you can make it fun or whatever. So keeping it grounded and finding that truth in yourself is how to make it work.
Also, if you just put yourself in a corridor and everyone shuts the doors and you're told you can't leave for 5 months.
That's another way to do it.
Owen, are you okay?
I would also say...
I'm very traumatized by this shit.
And he keeps touching him when he talks. I'm like, blink twice if you need help. It's going to be okay. Right after we get off the stage.
I would also say, my acting coach always says to me, just remember to tell the story. And you know, there's 1,000 different ways to do this and so many different techniques, and you know, something different resonates with every different person, every different actor, but if you just really commit to telling that story.
I want to applaud all of our actors because our showrunner Jeff gave these guys, and you'll see when you see the show, there is progressively crazier and crazier shit that happens in the show, and these guys, I will say, would get the pages, show up on the day, and they committed to all of it. There is some crazy stuff that happens in the show, and it feels real because of these guys.
And with that, unfortunately, we are out of time. So